The now first place Carolina Hurricanes in the Metro Division head to the state of hockey to take on the Minnesota Wild for the last time in the regular season. How will this play out? Can they take the regular season sweep? And also, is Pyotr Kochetkov putting himself into that 1A conversation once again and with authority? We'll talk about that here on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. And we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one podcast sports network. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the co-host of The Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On today's show, we're going to preview the Hurricanes at the Minnesota Wild as they wrap up their regular season series with Minnesota on Wednesday night. Also going to talk about Pyotr Kochetkov, as is he making another case once again to prove that he is and could be the 1A for the Carolina Hurricanes, not just for the rest of this season, but potentially in the seasons after. And then we get to hear from Rod Brind'Amour post-practice after after Tuesday. But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 wins. And yes, you heard that right. The Carolina Hurricanes are now at the top of the Metro Division standings because the New Jersey Devils lost 5-1 to the Tampa Bay Lightning on Tuesday night. Puts them with the same record as the Hurricanes, 13-5-1, 27 points, the same points percentage at .711. However, because the Hurricanes have beaten the Devils this season already, they hold the regular season tiebreaker in head-to-head matchups. So that's why the Hurricanes are at the top of the mountain, at the top of the Metro, over the New Jersey Devils, despite having the same record. So yes, your Carolina Hurricanes are at the top of the Metro. So they head into Minnesota, 9-7-4. This is a 9:30 p.m. Eastern start for your Hurricanes against the Wild. And of course, this game will be on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max, but you can hear on 99.9 The Fan. Hurricanes 13-5-1. The last time these two teams met up, well, it was a 4-3 back-and-forth battle between both sides where the Hurricanes came out on top of Minnesota. Unfortunately, this was the game where we lost Jalen Sheffield, but there was an update that he was with the Hurricanes at practice on Tuesday. The thing is, though, he could be back against Minnesota, or it'll be sometime on this road trip. So Rod Brind'Amour did say that we will see Jalen Sheffield. We are just not sure if it's Wednesday night or it could be later this week, but there is some good news on that front. Then Jalen Sheffield is back at practice. We could see him back very, very soon. So players to watch over the last 5 games in terms of points, goals, and assists. Nikolai Ehlers, 5 points. Taylor Hall with 3 goals. Shane Gostisbehere with 5 assists. Minnesota, Matt Boldy with 6 points. Kirill Kaprizov, 3 goals, and Mats Zuccarello with 4 assists. Now looking over the last 10 games, Minnesota 6-2-2. They're on a 2-game winning streak after being Anaheim and then the Golden Knights in overtime. For your Carolina Hurricanes, 7-2-1. Got the redemption win against Boston earlier this week, and then they had that on-off with Edmonton, Vancouver, and Washington. Before that, they had a 4-game winning streak, but that's kind of what you're looking at right now. Goaltending matchups, we just saw Pyotr Kochetkov against the Boston Bruins. Of course, he had a great game, 4-0-0 on the season now, 1.7 goals against, a .926 save, and a shutout. Could we see Brandon Bussi? I'm not sure. I could probably see where the Hurricanes are going to go to Frederik Andersen in this one, 5-4-1, a 310 goals against, and an 886 save percentage. So it'll be very interesting to see where the Hurricanes go in their direction of which goaltender to face with in this one. I think it's going to be Freddie more than anything else. The fact that they want to really keep their 1A, 1B rolling and give Bussi some starts here and there. Of course, they need to keep him because if they put him on waivers, he's most likely going to get claimed. So don't be shocked if it's Freddie Anderson, but hey, you never know. We could see Bussy, but that's where I'm kind of leaning. Goaltending wise for Minnesota, Philip Gustafsson, a 5-7-2 record, a 299 goals against, an 897 save with 1 shutout. This is the guy I think it's really going to start in this game, but it'll be very interesting to see where Minnesota goes. Jesper Wallstedt, 4-0-2 on the season, a 210 goals against average, a 924 save with 2 shutouts. I think it could be a Jesper Wallstedt, Frederick Anderson showdown, and that's who I think the goaltending matchup is going to be. Now, are we going to see the same thing like we did in Carolina, where it was just a back and forth shootout where it seemed like no one can get saves and everyone was scoring? I think this game is going to be different. I think Carolina knows that they're going to go into Minnesota. They need to keep this one. They need to keep the point streak going because they have gotten points in their last 3. They want to make it 4, and I don't think they want to make this another shootout again with Minnesota. This is a game where you really don't put this out of reach. Give you 2 games in a row that you've won, and make it a 4-game point streak as well. 5-on-5 wise, the Hurricanes should be able to put Minnesota away, despite whoever they're going to have in net, because the Hurricanes are second in the NHL at a 3.63 goals for per game, and they've only given up 2.84 per game, which would make them 11th in the league. And of course, like I said, their goals for are second. Minnesota, however, 26th in the league in goals for at 2.75, and they're right exactly at 15th at 3.05. So the Hurricanes do have an advantage on 5-on-5. They score more and they give up fewer goals, while Minnesota is a top 15 team in terms of not allowing a lot of goals. They, however, struggle at scoring goals, and that's surprisingly for the fact that Minnesota put Carolina in an interesting spot in that 4-3 win for the Hurricanes. So they did get more than their usual average, but if the Hurricanes find a way to lock it in and not let Minnesota have all the chances like they did back in Carolina, I think this is an opportunity where the Carolina Hurricanes really need to go into Minnesota and impose their will early, keep this a 5-on-5 game, and put them out of it early and quiet the crowd. Because if you take a crowd out of it, that really is going to make it tougher on the home team, because now they're not getting the juice they need from their fans like we usually see with the Hurricanes at Lenovo Center. Now, special teams, this is where it can get very interesting, because Minnesota is 4th in the NHL at 26%, while the Hurricanes are still second to last at 13% at 31st. So the hope is the Hurricanes don't get into a special teams battle with Minnesota, because penalty kill wise, the Hurricanes are at 17th at 79%, despite going 3 for 4 against Boston. It would have been nice if they went 4 for 4, but hey, you still got the win. Minnesota, 71.7% on the penalty kill, which is 28th. So if the Hurricanes could get a power play, I think this could be the game to do it, hopefully, because I guess they're not going against a strong penalty kill unit. But you are talking about a Carolina Hurricanes team that is 31st. It's all about making sure you're not giving Minnesota those extra chances. I think that's going to be the big thing. So for the Carolina Hurricanes in this game, get to the goalie early, get the fans out of it really quick, make them make mistakes, because this is a Minnesota team that's not really strong 5-on-5. If you can force the tempo and make them having to play your game, regardless if it's on their ice, I think you're going to be able to take this one out of the way early, and we're not going to see another 4-3 shootout where it seems like everyone's just scoring goals. And you really got to limit the penalties, because you cannot give Minnesota more than 1 or 2 chances a game, because like I said, you're talking about a top 5 power play in the Wild. The last thing you really want to do is give Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, all these guys an opportunity to kill you on the special teams battle. Because if you control the special teams battle, that's going to make your life a lot easier on the 5-on-5, because you're having to force them to play your game rather than having the man advantage. So for me, those are kind of the big takeaways for me in this game. If you want to keep your winning streak alive, if you want to extend a winning streak, keep your point streak alive, you got to make sure that you're playing 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey. Don't let these guys in the game take the crowd out. Keep up 5-on-5 to limit your penalties. I think this is going to be a good spot for the Hurricanes to get the regular season sweep. You get the job done in Minnesota, 2 games in a row that you've won. Your point streak's at 4, and you keep rolling on this road trip and making sure then you're going to Winnipeg with some huge momentum. I know momentum doesn't carry from game to game, but you're in a good mindset going from Minnesota to Winnipeg on that short trip, knowing that you're 2-0 on the road, on that road trip, and then you keep moving on as we see fit. Now, all that to be said, Pyotr Kochetkov has been playing really well recently. You kind of heard me talk about him in our last show, but we're going to kind of dive into it a little bit more of, is he the 1A of this season in the future? Stick around and we'll talk about it here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. When it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougit comes in. Rougit.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. The process is fast, simple, and private. It's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnAHL to get 50% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnAHL. And don't forget to use the code LockedOnAHL so they know we sent you. Rougit, stop making excuses and start making moves. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, I'm going to talk about goaltending, and I know that's kind of been a big topic as always because it's the Carolina Hurricanes, and we know that every single season it always comes up with the injuries. Can guys stay healthy? Having to dig deep in the depth, all this conversation, who's the goalie of the future, stuff like that. And there's been some debates on who's the 1A, who's the 1B. Is this guy really it? We've seen some struggles here and there. And you guys, I've almost done 400 episodes of the show. You guys heard me talk about the goaltending. You know that I'm a big Pyotr Kochetkov guy. I always feel like that he's always trending in the right direction. The LA Kings game last year wasn't really helpful. The fact that the team didn't really give him a lot of support in that game kind of killed his confidence, and he did kind of struggle. And it happens to every single goalie. It happens for sure. And, is there some fault? You got to make the saves that you need to. But the thing is, if you're talking about goalies of the future, I think Pyotr Kochetkov is that guy because we've seen it over the offseason. The maturity's really grown. He's, giving fans an insight into like his gear, his mindset, how he tries to make himself better and stuff like that. You're seeing a huge maturity level. You're seeing that jump in where he's not being that overly aggressive wild card Russian goalie that we saw when he first came in. He's kind of adapting a little bit of the Frederik Andersen calm, cool collective in his game. He's not being aggressive. And we've heard it from Paul Schaumfeder when he's talked to Mike and Tripp on Kane's Cast. And just overall, they are finding the right balance for Pyotr from being that aggressive goalie who is going to poke check you, but doing it at the right time and not doing it all the time, and being the goalie that can stay in his crease, find the right angles, and make the saves. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was like 9 seconds away from his second shutout in 4 starts. Yes, he's played in 5 games, but you're talking about 4 game starts. He was 9 seconds away from making 2 shutouts in 4 starts already this year for the Hurricanes. That is a great start to the season for him. And I think like I said, there's been some debate if he is the 1A of the future. Can he do it? Some people still question, I don't know if he can. I think that it stinks that he missed so many games at the start of the season, but I think overall, since he's come back, and Rod Brind'Amour said it too, he has done his job. He's put this team in a position to win games, and he's done that. Like I said, you're looking at a goalie who's 4-0 on the season with a 1.70 goals against average and a 926 save percentage. Out of 95 shots, he's stopped 88 of them. Yes, he's only played 247 minutes and 6 seconds, which is third compared to Brandon Bussey's 299 and Frederik Andersen's 600 minutes and 47 seconds. However, he has the only save percentage in the 900s. And like I said, it is a 926. That's pretty dang impressive when you look at what Pyotr Kochetkov has done for the Carolina Hurricanes, because you look at what he's done recently. You're talking about a 1,000 save percentage in a shutout in his first game of the season against the Rangers. Yes, he lets up 3 goals against Buffalo, but he still gets the win in 864 save percentage. Yeah, Vancouver, it was an overtime win. He did let up 3 goals. We only faced 17 shots and 824 save percentage. But then you look at the Boston game, 29 out of 30 saves. He almost went 30 for 30, being a 967 save percentage. Washington, he didn't face a shot in that game, which is crazy to think about. But you're talking about a 1,000 save, 9 seconds away from another 1,000 save percentage game, but still a 967, and that outweighs the 280, the 800 ones. Yes, there was 3 goals in each of those, but like I said, you're facing 22 shots against Buffalo, 17 against Vancouver. Should there have been saves that game? Yes. Every goalie should see that, but we've seen Andrei Vasilevsky get lit up. We've seen Igor Shesterkin get lit up. Every goalie is not safe from getting 3, 4, 5 goals against them. That's where we're at in the NHL right now, where you're not going to see massively unreal seasons where you're going to see goalies in the sub 2s, where you're getting like a 1.89 or a 1.9, or you're looking at goalies who are getting like an under 2.5. Yeah, you're going to get that, but it's not like you're going to see 3, 4, 5 guys that are going to have like unreal save percentages and goals against averages. They're just kind of like, wow, every team has got their scores, and there's nights where any goalie is going to get lit up, and that's just how it works in the NHL now. But for Pyotr Kochetkov, like I said, you're looking at a goalie situation where Frederick Anderson's on another 1-year deal. He's 5-4-1 with a 3.10 and 8.86 save percentage. It's one of those things where do you wish Freddie had some saves? Yes, we have seen a lot this season, and he definitely needed some. Brandon Bussy's played really well. He had one really not so great game out of his 5 starts, but he's been holding it down for the Hurricanes. A 2.6 save goal, 2.6 goals against, and an 8.98 save percentage. Of course, his save percentage is under the 900s because, once again, not facing a lot of shots. If you give up 1 or 2 or 3 goals a game, yeah, your save percentage isn't going to be in the 900s. Caden Primo, his record's not really with the Hurricanes, but when he was with Toronto, 2-1 in 3 starts, of 4.3 goals against, and an 8.38 save percentage. But that's not really on him. That's just that's just Toronto's defense right now isn't great. Yeah, they won in overtime against the Blues on Tuesday night, but that was 3-2. And they're struggling. They're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference right now with Buffalo. The point being is, if you're looking what the goaltending is, yeah, there's going to be some good names in free agency, but Pyotr Kochetkov is still signed through next season with Carolina, and there's a lot of confidence in Pyotr Kochetkov. The guys like him. The coaching staff can see that he has the potential, and the organization does too. Do we see a possible extension at some point? I could probably see one coming for Pyotr Kochetkov if he keeps playing this way. Am I going to say he's going to go undefeated? No, because it's impossible for a goalie to go undefeated. But if he gets to a point where he is a sub, let's say 2.3, or 2.4 goals against, and his save percentage is in the 900s, like 908 to 912, I think it's a good season for him, despite the fact he missed the first few games. Where you're at in the organization, I think he is the goalie 1A of the future. I don't think there's ever going to be 1 or 2 in Carolina because, unfortunately, injuries are a thing, but there's nothing he can do about it, in terms of things that just happened. But if you're talking about that guy who could be the 1A at least, I think Pyotr Kochetkov could be your 1A. Do you bring Brandon Bussy back for next season to be the 1B? That's a potential. He's played really well for the Hurricanes. He signed a 1 year. They could run Kochetkov and Bussy next season. Who really knows? And that's a pretty dang good duo if you make it work like that. And maybe if you extend Primo as well, there's your third goalie. Do you look at Kochetkov, Bussy, and Kane Primo as your 1, 2, 3? That's a possibility. Like I said, there's other guys that are coming up in free agency. Could the Hurricanes find a legitimate 1B there and they have Bussy or Primo be their third? That could work too. Point being is, I think Pyotr Kochetkov right now is really making a case to be the 1A. And I've said it a lot. And you guys heard me talk about last season, this offseason, and this year. He has helped the Hurricanes make the playoffs the last couple of years because he's done a lot of the yeoman's work to get the job done to get him there. What do these seasons look like without Pyotr Kochetkov in net? Who really knows? But he has done enough to prove it time and time and time again that he has a legitimate reason and a shot to say, hey, I am the 1A for the Carolina Hurricanes this season, next season, and however long they want to keep him around. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you think Kochetkov could be the 1A? Do you think he's a 1B, or do you see something else happening? But let me know in the comments if you're on the YouTube side of things. And if you're on social media, let me know One True Zach on X. Do you think that Pyotr Kochetkov is the 1A for the Carolina Hurricanes. Maybe this season and futures beyond, but we will see. Now, there was practice on Tuesday. Rod Brind'Amour met with media after that. So here in a second, we're going to listen and react to that on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team makes that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So the Hurricanes practice on Tuesday. We know Jalen Sheffield might be going sometime this week, but what else did Rod Brind'Amour say to the media post-practice? Well, let's jump in and listen to that right now.
Good sign to see Jalen on the ice.
Yeah.
What does that point to for his return?
I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it means he's closer. I mean, it's going to be his call, so we'll see. I mean, he's been out for a little while, but I think he's not in whatever it is tomorrow. I'm sure he'll be, on this road trip at some point.
You talked about it last night, the complete effort that your team had against Boston, but what is it when your team is locked in that makes it so tough for the opposition to get anything on you?
I mean, it's any team. If they get to their game, it's hard for the other team to, create momentum. And I thought certainly that second period where we just felt like every line was just on top of them, and, we were able to get a couple, which, I guess they put the game away, but it certainly put us in a good spot. So it's 20 guys, right? Like it's hard to, we don't have to count on one guy. We need everyone to contribute, and when we're doing that, we were really tough to beat.
I know the focus is on your team, but you saw Minnesota not too long ago. What are you going to have to do against them tomorrow?
Well, it's interesting when you have teams that have these kind of special players. It's a little different, right? Like you got the team and they got their game, and then you got these all of a sudden these outliers that they can just take over games, and we've seen it here. We've just played Edmonton, and that's basically what happened there. And they have a special player that does the same type of thing. So it's kind of a double whammy. You're worrying about the team game that they play well, and then all of a sudden you got to have awareness to these special players that can just kind of do things that not many others can.
And I'm assuming you're talking about Kirill.
Yeah,
what is
that's
it
what I'm
that
talking
makes him so hard to
Well,
contain?
it's very unpredictable, and it's he can beat you with speed, skill. He can shoot it. There's just it seems easy enough to say just stay on him, but it doesn't work that way. We had one the other night too with Pasternak. You give him a second, and it's like and that's what these elite players can do.
Do you feel like they look different than when you saw them? I mean, defensively, they've been a different team since playing you guys.
Well, I can't really, I haven't watched them a ton. Mm-hmm. We obviously just played them. I don't know how many games ago, but it wasn't that long ago. We know what we get when you play this team. I mean, they're gonna make you earn your chances, and I don't think that's changed.
Yeah.
Jordan's
goal last night, is that country strength, or is he starting to border into older guy strength?
We joked about that. It's kind of how when you're playing with your kids, it's kind of how you hold them off and throw them around. That's what it reminded me of. And then you tap it in. But he's been we talked about him a lot this year. We talk about it a lot all the time because he's our leader and he does it by example. And that's we talk about 20 guys, but they need to follow somebody that's doing it right, and that's the guy.
That line, the last two games, has really started off with the opening shift with a good chance. Is that one of the things that they set the tone everybody else has to follow?
Well, that's what leadership is, and it's not just talk, right? It's you have to back it up, and you've watched him enough over the years. It doesn't have to be on the score sheet to be impactful, but it's just the way we have to play as a team to be successful. And that line, or Jordan, and even Will's been great when he's been healthy. They certainly set the tone.
Personality-wise, how different are Eric and Jordan?
That's a good question. There's so many similarities because they're just great human beings. Like it runs in the family.
Yeah.
And, I used to think that Eric was like a little more fiery and a little more, showed his kind of edge and his competitiveness. But now Jordan was he's grown into that too a little bit. But they're just both, they're caring people. And that's why it makes them, I thought certainly in Eric's case a great leader, and then now with Jordan is they actually care about what they're doing and who they're doing it with, and that shows. And that's what makes them special.
Henry doesn't even age.
Yeah, I know.
Did you give Eric any coaching tips now that he's taking on the assistants in high
I just
school?
said just make sure you don't want to be the head guy. And that's exactly, he's doing it right because that guy takes all the grief. And if they give you the reins, it's actually what they should do because he probably knows more than the other guys. But you don't have to have all the, all the
politics.
You said it, I did.
Yeah.
Big thank you to Rod Brind'Amour and the Carolina Hurricanes, as always. You heard a lot from the coach on that one. A little bit longer than we usually do, but kind of feel like this is a good one to kind of get the full picture of what's going on. And you heard it from him. They're waiting to see if Jalen Chaffet's ready to go, see if he is capable of doing it. If he's not getting ready for Minnesota, then it's on to the next one. And it's funny too, hearing him talk about Jordan Staal and the fact that it's that old man, it's that dad strength, it's just fighting off guys and stuff like that. And Raw with the good antidote of it's basically how you hold it for your kids. You got to hold it back with one arm and do what you need to do. And that's kind of what he did against Boston. So it's good to see, but also for the fact that, the team has to just, keep doing their thing and watching out for guys like Kirill Kaprizov. You can't overlook, Boldy, Rossi, Eriksson Ek. It's one of those things where even Brock Faber, it's those things where you have to make sure you're doing your job and holding the superstars or the really good guys at bay, because that's where we're at in this league right now, where every single team's got scores. There's no even teams at the bottom of the list. You could look at a Buffalo Sabres. You still got Tage Thompson. You still got Alex Tuch, guys who can score goals. Every team has guys that can put the puck in. And then the Hurricanes just need to play their game, because the last thing you want to do is give them more opportunities and, not play your style. You've got to play your game. You can't chase. And I think that's what the Hurricanes are really going to focus on in this one against Minnesota, is making sure that you're not giving Kaprizov and all those guys ample opportunities to go get goals and, get themselves ahead. And that's what Rod talked about when the last time they played Minnesota, was the fact that it's a different team now, but you gave them so many opportunities. And that kind of led into, the thing of gifting goals. You really shouldn't be doing that. And I think that's where the Hurricanes are going to take what they did last time against Minnesota, not that long ago, earlier in the month, and kind of translate it to this game where you're going to have to make sure that you're adjusting at the right times, making the plays that you need to, and kind of playing that, Carolina Hurricanes hockey where you're smothering them, not giving them the opportunities, take away the, passing lanes and the shooting lanes, and don't cause turnovers. Don't give them those chances to go down and score against you. You've got to make sure that you're controlling the tempo, controlling the style of play. And I think that's what the Hurricanes essentially are going to do in this one. So it should be very interesting for the Hurricanes how they go into Minnesota. Like I said, it's the last time they're going to face these guys in the regular season unless something happens in the playoffs. But, you want to take a season sweep. We've seen them already do it this year before, so they're going to try to do it again. And we'll go from there and see what happens. But it should be an exciting game. I'm curious to see who's going to be in that. Is it going to be Anderson or is it going to be Bussy? Only time will tell. But the one thing for sure is, it's another game. We are now at game 20, which is crazy to think about for the Carolina Hurricanes. And now we just move on to the next one. And right now, as it stands, whenever you listen to this before the game on Wednesday against Minnesota, your Carolina Hurricanes are first in the Metropolitan Division. But guys, this will be the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm one true Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. Also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin. Where if you click link trees in my bios, you can find all of my written content at thehockeyRS.com. I'm putting out a lot of stuff recently, so make sure to go check that out. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs who become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy Wednesday and have fun watching your Carolina Hurricanes for Hurricanes After Dark at a 9:30 start. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.